What's up, guys and gals? Today we have a Penn Delmar 285 or number 285 that we're going to break down, service, and reassemble with some tips and tricks along the way. We're going to start with taking the handle off by removing that screw, that nut, and I'll show you what's underneath there. I'm just going to pull this up. Shouldn't be anything under there, which is all we have is a handle. Then we can back that star drag up, going reverse or anti or counterclockwise. You can pull the sleeve out. If not, it may just fall out on you like that. Now we're going to loosen these 6 screws here and these 6 screws on this side. We'll keep them separate, but I believe they're the same size. And then we'll also loosen these 4 screws around the bridge and undo that screw for the eccentric when we pull this off. Notice I'm putting some pressure on the post when I'm removing the post screws because sometimes they'll have a tendency to slip on you or rotate with the screw. That's the right side. We'll leave that upside down so everything stays intact. And now we'll do this other side, like I said. I'll take a Sharpie and just mark a letter. I'm marking an L right there, just showing me it came from the left side. And I don't do this for every reel, but in general, these older reels, over time, they kind of shift to a certain shape or design. Well, shape. Doesn't mean they don't work. They still work fine. But if you switch this around for the left side being the right side, it might throw it off a little bit. So I try to keep it intact in that regard. Now that's separated, we see that the spool has nothing on it. So we'll just set that aside for a second. Here are all the screws from the left side. You notice the 2 stand screws are shorter than the post screws. And should be the same thing for the right side. We're just going to keep these separate. I'll have the left on the left and the right on the right. Now before we go and get to the right side, we're going to remove the bearing from the left side. Just unscrewing it, you'll find the bearing with the spring inside of it. And that's it. You can also remove this click spring, but we're not going to do that since we can't remove the click tongue. Now, as I said before, we're going to loosen those 4 stand screws on the outside, and then we'll remove the eccentric lever by undoing that screw. I've just loosened those up, and now we'll start with the stand with the eccentric lever to remove first. Just pop that off by lifting it up. Then you can push out, and now that's loose. So I'm cupping the back of this. There's a spring under there that I don't want shooting out. It doesn't really do it, but just in case, let's go ahead and protect that by keeping our hand behind it. There's a spring I'm referring to. Came off of the dog. Now you have the pieces for the eccentric. Where's the lever? Let's get rid of that screw that we're obviously a little concerned about because it's just so small that we never want to lose it. And let's back up this bearing so we can get that out of there. One thing about the bearing I want you to notice is that it fits right up through the pinion gear. So when you're putting this back on, you want to make sure that that pinion gear is going down through or on top of that part of the bearing. Now to break this down, we're simply going to separate the pieces. This is the yoke and the pinion. Here's the jack. And we're just going to use both fingers kind of around it like this and pull up on the main gear. You want to be careful with this washer underneath here. If it breaks, you got to replace it. But usually there will be like a leathery kind of washer under here, which this one seems like it is. We're going to pick it up or take it off. If it comes off, great. If it does not, or if you break it, we'll replace it. It's just a very fragile kind of piece. So if it's too fragile, we're still going to replace it anyhow. This is really one of those leathery ones. I prefer the plastic or hard plastic washers. Alright, the last piece will be to take this off. You have that spring on top. And then you have a washer. It's like a leathery kind of washer. The keyed washer, another leathery kind of washer, the aired washer, and then you have the remaining leathery washer and keyed washer. Now if you want to remove that sleeve, there's a hole right there with a pin going through it. You could use a tool, a punch tool or something to remove that, to push it out, and this entire thing will come off. We're not going to do it on this one. And now to clean this stuff up, we'd use a paper towel, lots of Q-tips, our toothbrush, kind of brush things off. And if things were pretty bad, we'd probably end up using some Corrosion X or WD-40 or whatever other kind of oil you have in there or at your disposal to kind of help break down the oil and the dried up grease that may be on the reel. Also for these gears, you could use something like toilet bowl cleaner, like Tidy Bowl. I use the Lime Away version. You could even use, in a glass bowl or something, brake cleaner fluid. You do have to be a little careful with that one, depending on the metal that you're trying to clean. But it will definitely help clean off a lot of the stuff that might be built up on here, if it's bad. Alright, so we'll get this all cleaned up, come back to you guys and show you how to put it all back together. Welcome back. First thing we're going to do is the spool and the left side so we can get those things out of the way. I'm using Penn blue grease for this. We're just going to add some grease around here, just that post, like so. And on the shoulder, and post on this one as well. And now for the post here for the span, we're going to use oil. I've been using oil lately. Just drop it inside there. Let it get all the way to the top. The one I'm using here is Relax, but you can use whatever you have. And this helps coat the screws as they go in. Now for this, I will go ahead and use some grease right here. Just kind of get inside the hole. You can also grease the threads on the screws. I think that's probably a more effective way of doing it, but I just don't think on these small things it's necessary. Last thing we're going to grease would be the threads on this bearing, just like that. Then adding some oil inside of it. Now we'll stick our spring on there and then screw this in. And we go to just about flush or just below flush. I'll leave a little bit of room for the spool to kind of enter and have, you know, room to play with. Now we can go ahead and grease this ring and the click tongue. I'm sticking my brush on there to get the underside. Then the click tongue right here. I don't really grease the point, but if you do, it's not that big of a deal. And then the back side, I will add some oil to right here, kind of like that. Work it back and forth. Make sure at the end you have this on the outside so it's not sticking in. It'll block the spool when you try to put that in. Now we'll take one of our posts, take one of our long screws for the left side, stick that through, and then just kind of hold on to the back of it and just lightly screw it in. Like that. You don't need to tighten this down yet. I'll do the rest for the other ones. I'm just going to do the first two, and then I will do the stand afterwards. Now for the stand, don't forget we have an L here, so we want to make sure that that L is what we're using on this side, and this is how it'll look going in. And it'll be the same kind of process as the post. We use the post to kind of have a balance, so we can use our hands and kind of get those things started. Get one in, then I'm just going to line that over it and screw it in. And you're going to feel around for it, kind of like right there. Then just do the other one. And when you get to the second one, you'll have to move this stand up and down to find the right slot for it as you keep spinning the screw. Now we can get rid of that L, we don't need it anymore, and we're good. We'll finish up the other two and then I'll come back to you and show you the right side. Now again, these posts and the stand are not snug down yet, we'll wait till the end to do that. Now we're going to go to the right side, we're going to get the main gear assembly or the drag assembly and get that set up. I did replace the drag washers as well as the under the main gear washer, and I'm using Cal's universal drag grease to go ahead and grease these washers. Now you want to get an even coat on this, and basically what that means is you want to cover the entire thing. If you get a little excess on there, don't even worry about it. It really doesn't matter that much. You don't want to be too crazy with it, but anything that's excess or excessive will kind of just seep out. Now we're going to go ahead and grease the bridge assembly, and it's really just kind of a light coat. I'm doing a light coat on top of the ratchet portion of the sleeve, and then I'm just taking a light coat around the base of it. And it's really just kind of a, like I said, a light coat on there. You can even use your finger and just kind of rub it in, and that should suffice. We'll also go ahead and grease these threads like that. And I won't grease the sleeve portion of it, but I will go ahead and grease the gears on the main gear, or the main gear, excuse me. Just notice I'm not greasing inside the main gear where the drag washers are going to go. And now we're going to take our under the main gear washer, which has been replaced to the plasticky one, put that on, drop this on there like that, and now we'll get this started. One thing to note here, if you have a lot of let's say pitting on these metal washers, you want to go ahead and replace it. That can affect the performance. You have stuff like that, little browning or just the little dirt that you see on there. It's not that big of a deal if it's not pressing against the drag washers, but you can use your 4/0 steel wool again to brush that off. All you're trying to do here is get a smooth surface on it. I don't know if you can see this or not, but if you do that, you'll see one side is a little shinier than the other, and that's all this really does. Alright, so first drag washer, first keyed metal washer, next drag washer, and then we have our aired washer. You see the two little tabs on it, they'll fit in two little slots that are on the gear. Drop those down. Then your final keyed washer. Then the last piece we have will be this spring that goes above it, just like so. And go ahead and grease some more points on here. So we'll take all these things and just get them greased up. Light coat. We're going to end up doing the eccentric first on this, just to get that back in place, plus the bearing on this side. When you're doing the pinion gear, you want to make sure you get some grease inside that little channel right there. That's where the yoke is going to ride on. I do also grease the threads on the bearing. So let's go ahead and screw this bearing in. For this side, we are going to go ahead and snug it all the way down. Don't over tighten this or go too hard, but you want to snug it down. Remember, this is Bakelite, so you could crack it at some point. Now we'll take our eccentric spring and we'll add a little bit of grease to it. Don't always grease these things, but this time I'm doing it. And then for the lever and the screw, kind of the same thing. I'll grease just around the outside or inside that little channel right there and that side. I don't typically grease the threads on the screw there, but remember I did grease inside this channel. So we'll stick this end of the spring right here, the little curved end, into the hole that's on the eccentric, kind of like so. Then we're going to have it positioned inside right there in that little groove that's created by that post and the base. So then we're just going to kind of sit it in like that, drop it in. Now notice this won't be set yet, it'll still be kind of raised up. So we're going to take this, use the back side of it, start from this end looking like that, and we're going to turn it. Push down on this eccentric as you push down on this side, and you're going to turn it till it gets in the middle somewhere where it's just balanced off, which this one is. I'm going to flip this over like so, and then screw it in. Just start slow at first, and you can speed up. I will tighten this down the entire way right now. Make sure it works, which we can see that it does. And I'm gonna leave it in that position right there. This is the engaged or retrieve position. This will be free spool. And again, if I need to adjust that as I go, I will. A little bit of grease around there, around that post. Reapply some grease around the post on the eccentric. And then we'll get these things set up. So first, I'll stick my springs in. They go in those two holes right there, as you can see. And I'm going to take one of these fully threaded screws, bring that out because that's the one I'll start with. You can also put a light coat of grease around the dog, but none really in the tip. I don't really do that. If it gets there, I don't think it's that big of a deal, so don't sweat it too much. Take our yoke, stick that on there through that slot on the pinion, and it's going to be sitting looking like that. Remember, you have a post on that bearing to worry about, so make sure you sit over the bearing first, and then you can just push down. You do want to make sure that that slotted side or that side that you see there, that notched out side, is facing up. That'll be what's going towards the spool. Now we can push down on it like so, and take this and just kind of position it to get on there. I start at an angle to get it over the post on the eccentric, then I just kind of play with it till it gets in place, which this is right here. Now before you setting this stuff up, what you can do is you can see what position works for the dog. That is not the position, as you can see. You want it this way, so you want to set up looking like that. Notice that this is going to be in this direction here. So how do you make this look like that? The way you do that is put this in. I'm going to squeeze down on the top part so the drags don't fall out. At an angle or sideways, stick it in like that. Push down, rotate gently till about right there. Now we'll take this in that position, looking like that. Stick that under there and position that hole, the hole in the dog, over the hole in the plate. The only one thing you want to make sure here is that the level of the dog is on the same level as the ratchet on this sleeve. Now we'll take our screw, stick that through the bottom hole, kind of like so. Get that back over it. Push that all the way through, but at some point when you start rotating this, you will push that back down again. But we don't want to have to worry about too many things. Take our spring, angle it in like that first. Now you're going to take your thumb, kind of rest that over the spring to support it. And then you're going to take your index finger or even a screwdriver. Maybe I'll just do a screwdriver to show you. It's a little tricky either way, but it's not terrible. And you're going to push down until that drops inside the channel for that supports the spring. And I think we're in business. And see, it doesn't really go anywhere. Now I'm going to rotate this over, push down slightly on that screw. Keep an eye on that spring, make sure it doesn't step out of place. And now we're just set. Going to turn this over and screw that in to secure everything on this side, so it doesn't go anywhere. I'm not tightening it down yet, but I want to make sure that spring doesn't fly up on me. Now I can take one of the partially threaded screws, stick that through the top side. Those the fully threaded are on the bottom two, and the partially threaded are on the top two. Lightly secure that, and the same for the others. Once you have them all in, you can go ahead and snug them down. You can do an X sort of pattern. So snug that one down first. then this bottom right, then go to the bottom left, and to the top right, and you're good. Don't over tighten those either. Again, it is Bakelite. You can crack it if you go too hard. Now at this point, we're going to re-add some grease to right here. Take some oil, drop it inside here, and hit the threads in the inside with some grease. Take our sleeve, stick that on, take our star drag, get that screwed on. It needs to go down pretty easy like that. If it doesn't, you're cross threading it, and then you need to back up and try it again. Now I'm going to take my handle, stick that on there gently, just so I can get the star drag a little farther down. And the reason being is I want to get it past that little bridge right there on the sleeve, because this base, or the base for the handle, is going to be supported by that separation. If you do it too early, you will pinch the handle and the star drag together, and they won't function, or this won't function properly. So now that that's set, stick it on there, screw it in. Snug that down to line up one of those indentations on the screw here to line up with that hole right there. Stick some grease over that hole, and then secure this, the lock screw. We can do a quick test here to make sure that the dog is working, and we know the star drag works, which is always good. Now we'll take this side of the spool, stick that in like so, and then we're going to just kind of set this up and get those other screws in. Don't forget the bottom, the two shorter screws are going inside the stand. We're just going to line this up. When you get here, remember that this has a shoulder on it that needs to fit inside that shoulder there. So we're going to take it. If it doesn't sit properly right away, we'll go ahead and rotate this slightly so that it fits over it. And then we know we're good. Then line it up and screw it in. I'm going to start with one of the post screws first. I just think it's a little easier. You may have to adjust the post to line it up properly. Don't snug it down all the way yet. Now we can finish the rest of the screws. Now that we have all the screws in, we're going to go ahead and snug everything down. And remember, when you're doing this on the post part, you may have some slippage. If that happens, there's a couple things you can do. Just start that side, go to this other side, kind of support it a little bit. And screw it in. You'll feel that they get tighter and tighter as you go, as you alternate from left side to right side. So we'll have to go back maybe a couple times just to make sure that we're getting it snugged. See, this one's a lot snugger already. And again, I'm still not trying to go too hard on these things because this is Bakelite that can crack. That feels good. First thing I'm going to do is test out the free spool on it. That works very well. And I'll try the retrieve mode. That also works very well. And now we'll test the drag out. Okay, it's starting to slip on me right there. Okay, I can't hold it anymore. So the drag works well. Let's see the clicker. That works well. Alright guys, if you found the video useful, please hit the thumbs up button. If you appreciate content like this, consider subscribing to the channel and spreading it to your friends as well. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.